All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, Shipping Nation YouTube station? Monday after the Masters, and wow, did we have a hell of a weekend over here at ShippingNation.com across everywhere. I mean, Showdown, Main Slate, this, that, the other thing. If I'm sure you got sick of it, looking at the Shipping Nation logos up top. If you're not a member, not sure what you're doing there. Obviously, doesn't mean you're going to sign up and you're going to win, but pretty crazy stuff across the board. All different buy-ins, all different entry fees. Shout out to my guy Tambo. Came over to Shipping Nation with him at the start of the company. And he didn't have the turnout he wanted in the Millie going into Sunday. Shout out to Kittyama for just falling on his face and some other guys there. And other guys obviously nuking there, but found himself a nice $100,000 win in the Showdown Streets on Sunday. We went 1-2 in that contest. Lighty took home the 200 stacks in the main flagship there. But more importantly, right, Shipping Nation went 1-2-3 in the main the main three max. I think it was the $250 three max with 20K to first. 1-2-3 finish for Shipping Nation there. A couple $30,000 winners, two $15,000 winner plus, a couple $10,000 winners, and many more obviously out there as well. And I know a lot of those wins members cashed in based on tickets out there. So coming off a hell of a weekend in the PGA streets. I know MMA was great. Shout out to our guy Marley for shipping the MMA qualifier seat there and plenty of other wins there. So just an incredible weekend all around over the weekend. An incredible event. Obviously Masters is always good. I didn't really love how they kind of set up the course there, but they can only do so much obviously with the weather they had. But nonetheless, still an absolutely incredible showing and an incredible tournament there. Shout out to all the winners. Hoping to keep that momentum rolling here. I know we got a big 555 tonight with 200K up top in the MLB streets that they ran satellites for. Plenty other qualifiers and massive contests for Monday. Matt, they finally pushed the start time up, added these additional 3 games, which, hey, very important on the slate from pitching and from hitting perspective in general. So I'm glad they did that. And made it a 9-game slate instead of a 6-game slate. I'll bring you in, man. How was your weekend? How was your Masters? How's everything? Looking forward to breaking it down here today.
Yeah, you too, man. Excited to talk some MLB with you. We got a full slate, as you mentioned. They brought in these early games, which I'm excited about. The more the merrier, I guess. I feel like I personally prefer like small MLB slates where I can really get granular with it and just play plays that, you know, on main slates aren't really relevant. But I like slates like this also where there's only one team getting a bunch of ownership, and it's not like that team is in cores or, you know, something of the sort. They're just the Yankees facing Kikuchi in Yankee Stadium. So they look good, but other teams also look good. So, yeah, excited to break this down with you. Weekend was good. I'm not a huge golf head, so I enjoy the Masters a little bit. My dad's a huge golfer, so watch it a little bit, dabble in some DFS, but mostly excited about talking some MLB and NBA playoffs starting this week, at least the playing game. So good sports time. We just finished, you know, hoops in college. A lot to look forward to on the horizon.
Yeah, we got an incredible MLB team over here. Obviously, yourself and myself on that Ham title, G Rise and the rest of the crew that helps out. I know our guy Rio drops in at times and throws his nuggets in the Discord, and he has a hell of an MLB mind and usually has a ton of success along with all the other members too. So shout out there. We got you covered in the MLB lobbies, obviously all season, right? It's the main sport going on right now. I know NBA playoffs are going to be good with you and Rio and the rest of the crew there heading that up. But yeah, looking forward to baseball. I love baseball. Shout out guy Little Neck's in here. Speaking of Rio, he's there. Michael W, Scooter McGavin, Sean Sully, Paraby, Nate D, Termite, KPD, Taco Taj, Sully again, Metro Boom, Aaron Smith. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. And Extron, we're going to try to give you the shippers the best we can, talk through it here. I'm going to go ahead and pull our partner SaberSim up here, swap the screen over, and voila. Let me go ahead and hide this. Make this bigger for everyone there, and boom. So, in terms of pitching, Matt, big talking point on the slate. Again, DraftKings is doing their thing that they always do, and pricing these pitchers at like 10K or below. 10K just seems to be the ceiling, at least early on in the season here. So far, from a pitching perspective, pitching today is really consolidated around kind of four arms: Eovaldi, Sanchez, Skeens, and then Crochet. Crochet being the big one, him and Skeens up at the top. Sanchez is going to be kind of sandwiched between those guys, a little bit lower owned, but people are going to play him. And that's the biggest game at risk for weather on the slate is Garrett Crochet. So I guess that's definitely one of the main talking points on the slate, because that game does lock a full hour after those early that early window start time there. So definitely going to want to be around leading up to lock. It is an earlier lock time, again, as I alluded to, 5:35 Central Time, 6:35 Eastern Time. So it does start about 40 minutes earlier than normal. So make sure you do have your teams and you are around to make adjustments, because there's not just one game starting. There's three games, and there's three important games starting early. So I'll throw it over to you right away from let's go 8K and above. So you got Grant Holmes down there at 8K, Yuri Perez, Gavin Williams, Skeens, Sanchez, and Crochet. I alluded to like the weather there in Minnesota. Kevin Roth has it tagged as orange, which doesn't look great. They could potentially sneak it through and that. But again, it's the first game of the series with a lot of day baseball on Wednesday to round up the series. So it's very easy that if they throw in the PPD, that they can just play a doubleheader on day baseball on a Wednesday to round up the series there, with Boston coming to the Midwest to Minnesota there. So touch on him and the weather concerns there, and then what are you doing with these other guys up at the
Yeah, so as far as Crochet goes, I do think he's the top arm, like undoubtedly so. I want to play him. I'm no weatherman, so I don't know exactly. I do know, me personally, I usually avoid weather spots, like especially spots where it's really, really risky. I get both sides of the coin. I understand playing spots like this too if it's going to be risky heading into lock. Man, it's tough though, because I think Crochet looks really good. I like Boston as a stack, which we'll get to. But knowing the weather is in doubt here for sure, we do have other good options. Skeens himself, like Washington's been good to start the season. Skeens' numbers don't look amazing because of that first start where he got screwed over by some bad defense, etc. But he's still got immense arm talent, obviously. I think he looks really, really good as a Crochet pivot or playing them together if the weather in Minnesota holds. Sanchez is the other guy. I don't think you feel as good about him as you do Skeens or Crochet, but despite a couple rough starts in a row, I still believe in his stuff. I've been on Sanchez for seems like forever at this point, even though it's hasn't been that long because he hasn't been in the majors that long, but I just love his stuff. So I don't love picking on the Cubs, but if you take Crochet out, I think he looks really, really good. After that, we got a few arms to choose from, 8K and above. I think it's Gavin Williams, another guy, has all the arm talent in the world. Walks are an issue with him. This spot, St. Louis can be pesky, but all in all, I'm not scared of the Cardinals. You've got good weather in St. Louis for hitting, but kind of a change of the trend tonight where a lot of spots are good hitting-wise. So I like Gavin Williams. Again, especially if we don't have Crochet. Even if we do have Crochet, I think he's too cheap for his upside. You mentioned Grant Holmes. He's the other guy. You get the soft landing spot against Miami. They're another team. Like, they're pesky. They're far from the Rockies on the road. Holmes seems pricey at 8K. I know he was chalky that last slate against the Angels at like 6,800 or whatever he was. You get a full price increase here. He's in play for sure because of the matchup and how this slate plays out, but I'm not excited about it. I think there's better options a little bit cheaper than him that are getting more ownership, and rightfully so. All in all, I think we have pretty good stable arms to look at this evening.
Yeah, it's definitely no shortage of arms. I'd be shocked if Crochet's ownership doesn't kind of moonwalk back and Sanchez and Skeens kind of go up, just due to the weather concern and that game starting so much later. And if you're stuck on Crochet, I mean, look at the other arms you got. Yeah, you got Gavin Williams down there at 9,800 or 8,800, who is my top overall arm on the slate. I like him a ton. But you're really kind of you got to get a different roster construction after that, with Crochet. The thing why Crochet's ownership is it's so tricky is not only the weather, but I mean, the reason he's so high owned is because it's so easy to afford the Yankees in Yankee Stadium against Kikuchi in that Angels bullpen with wind blowing out there, that you don't really have to make offensive sacrifices because the Yankees are underpriced in general. So it's tough what to do. If there was no weather concerns on the slate, Crochet is easily my favorite pitcher on the slate. All things point to that, facing the Twins in a good pitcher's ballpark there. It's just so hard to not know. So I'm hoping we get some clarity there. For me, it's just tough to really, without knowing what the weather is going to do over the next couple hours, and we won't even know. And not only that, like I said, it's the first game of the series with a day game on Wednesday, so they can easily play a doubleheader on Wednesday, which makes me even more hesitant. And obviously they play the Twins at home later in the year too, where they could make a makeup game as well. So it just seems more risky than normal to me. I probably put it at about a 30% PPD. It's probably anywhere from 20 to 30% out there. So it is a big talking point on the slate. I'm with you, Christopher Sanchez. I like him a ton. I like the Philly bats a lot. I get it. The wind's really good there. Hot weather in Philly, wind blowing out, kind of the consistency across the slate, which is overall been our best hitting condition slate, at least during the week that I've seen. I don't play too much on the weekends in general, but throughout the week, right, the weather for hitting tonight seems to be the best I've seen all year so far, with a kind of a warm streak across the country going. So I like Sanchez quite a bit. I think he's got strikeout ability. He's just a pitcher that typically doesn't get blown up too much, so I don't mind him at 9,800. Skeens feels like I get Washington has been pesky and this and that. I don't expect Washington to be a super good team. Skeens, I expect him to be kind of revert back to his normal self, who's in contention for a Cy Young, right? So I do like Skeens. He still has a 32% K rate to lefties, which he's going to see majority lefties here. And he just doesn't get hit hard very, very much. So overall, there is some risk there. And I can see a case where you don't even have to play either of these top three arms. I love Gavin Williams. He's my favorite overall pitcher on the slate at 8,800. Tons of strikeout ability there. I like him. I get it. It's good hitting weather again in St. Louis, but it's still a pitcher's ballpark there. It's still the Cardinals lineup. There's still a lot of strikeouts there. I just like Gavin Williams a ton. So he's my favorite overall pitcher. Yuri Perez, I can't really mess with him or Grant Holmes in that game. I think they're a little overpriced. They both have walk concerns. Perez has strikeout ability. Grant Holmes, it seems like just kind of the floor guy. And at 8K, when you got guys that are cheaper at ownership where I'm not really too concerned, I just don't see the need to mess with Perez or Holmes. I wouldn't fault anyone there. So for me, really up in the top tier, my favorite arm by far is going to be Gavin Williams. It would be Crochet next, but again, with the weather, I'm concerned there. And then I'd go to Sanchez as three. Those are kind of my three favorite guys up there. Skeens is fine. I am a little worried about how he's looked so far to start the year against lefties. I do expect him to kind of regress back, and Washington's hot right now, so that does give me some slight concern there. But Skeens would be the third or the fourth guy up in the top tier. Dropping down below 8K, some of my favorite options on the slate are down here. Start with Eovaldi at 7,800. Talk about him, who's going to get some ownership on the slate, and Will Warren for sure going to get some ownership. Anytime the Yankees are going to be popular with that run total, people naturally, a pitcher with strikeout ability and any pitcher going up against the Angels with their strikeouts that they have is going to get ownership all year. Those two guys are kind of soaking up the majority of the ownership down here. Reed Nelson, maybe a little bit, but what do you see down here below 8K?
Yeah, a bunch of good options, I think, here too. Like that's why even with the Crochet news, we talk about Eovaldi, who you mentioned at the forefront, is getting some ownership. Will Warren, who I think riskier than we might have thought at the beginning of the season against this Angels lineup, but still strikeout upside. I think those two guys right there probably look the best. I don't love either of them. Like Eovaldi, solid arm, never mind using him. You get an A's lineup without Rooker, but going to this ballpark, I don't know, into ownership, I'm probably off him, but I certainly understand playing him. There are other options down here, but honestly, I feel like if I'm spending down, I almost want to go even cheaper. Guys like, oh, it's ugly, but Ryan Nelson and Dean Kramer. I think both offenses of that game are widely in play, but both pitchers under 7K, fully stretched out, talented to a somewhat extent arms. Like, you could convince me all four sides of the Orioles D-backs game. So I don't know if I get to anything there. Probably more likely the offense, but there's a bunch of good offenses I like tonight too. So you get Kikuchi also as like the 6K guy, leverage off of the really chalky stack. Never comfortable. The Yankees have been bad against lefties so far this season, though. We saw Jeffrey Springs just dominate them a week ago, a few days ago, whenever that was. So I don't hate the Kikuchi leverage here. Low owned, strikeout upside. Like, he's too cheap. Another guy fully stretched out. The more I think about it, if I'm not playing the Yankees, I kind of like the idea of going to the Kikuchi. Nolan, like, it's extremely risky, but so is fading the Yankees. And if the Yankees don't go nuts here, I kind of feel like Kikuchi could have a game. Like, this is a guy we've seen way more expensive than this as recently as like last season. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm kind of talking myself into Kikuchi. Tell me where I'm off here.
No, I think you're 100% spot on. So I'll talk about Kikuchi in depth in a little bit here. I differ than you a little bit on Eovaldi. It's just due to the nature of the slate. I think the books are not mad or not scared. They hung a 6.5K prop, slightly juiced to the under there, but still hung a 6.5K prop there on Eovaldi. A's still strike out a ton. I get it. It's in Sacramento in that Cracker Jack ballpark. But in terms of the weather on the slate, that's like one of the least favorable hitting conditions on the slate. Temperatures in the upper 50s. You're talking like 20 degrees colder there compared to these Midwest games and the East Coast games and that earlier on in the day. And the wind's kind of not really doing anything there, which obviously those minor league stadiums, like where they're playing in Sacramento there, have a lot more effect with the wind. I get it. It's 380 in the power alleys, 400 to center, 330 down the line, but it is less favorable than some of the other spots on the slate. So I'm not quite as worried, and I'm just chasing strikeouts. I think he can have strikeouts. The A's have almost a 30% K rate against right-handed pitching on the year. Eovaldi last 30 days sitting at about 27% K rate, really gets tagged against lefties. So yeah, you can definitely play some Soderstrom, Butler, Cortez, some of these lefties there, but guys like Jeff McNeil, he's a contact guy. I'm not too worried about him. He still has a lot of strikeouts. So I do like Eovaldi quite a bit, even at ownership there. So I'm not really worried there. If picking between Eovaldi or Warren, I definitely side with Eovaldi at similar ownership. I don't know if that holds true. It's just, I think the Angels have a lot of strikeouts, but they also have a lot of power with wind blown out in Yankee Stadium on the other side of that. So I'd much rather side with Eovaldi over Warren. I think Warren is still playable for sure on this slate. And again, it's another case where like a lot of these arms and just the way this slate shakes up is you're going to want to play both sides of this a couple of these spots, especially in MME. Right. So Warren, Eovaldi, I'm fine with. I do like Green Nelson quite a bit. Pitch count, not a concern. 6,800. O's have been cold as can be to start the year. It is one of the higher totals on the slate there, but at 6,800 with strikeout ability and has shown the ability to kind of go deep. 4.5K prop, heavy juice to the over there, which is right in line with some of these other guys. So I like him down here. Dean Kramer, I think, is fine, but I much prefer Nelson, and the D-backs have a pretty good bullpen as well. So if he sets up for the win, there's a good chance that he could be in line for those extra 4 points, which go a long way when you're looking at a salary saver pitcher. And then I'll talk on Kikuchi. I wrote up Kikuchi in the Nades Nuggets in the Discord. Not only is he's the cheapest starting pitcher on the slate, but the Yankees almost a 30% K rate against left-handed pitching. We know Kikuchi always has the strikeout ability. What does he struggle with? Home runs and power. Well, yeah, if he gives up a home run or 2 or 3 even to guys like Judge and Stanton and the rest of the crew there, I mean, yeah, he can still offset it with a K prop or with strikeouts. His K prop sitting at 5.5. He's 6K. I get it. Could this go south in a hurry? Absolutely. However, the Yankees could be higher owned than some of the teams we've ever seen in Coors Field, especially to start the year because of that. I get it. The Angels bullpen is terrible. Yankees could get there late, things like that. I think Kikuchi, if I was playing 3 teams and say like the 555 or something like that, I'm playing 2 main teams, I would not fault anyone. I think it's important to have a 5-man Yankee stack, but one of my 3 teams would definitely have Kikuchi and a spend up stack outside of the Yankees that gets you on a different roster construction. And you play a Kikuchi and say like maybe a Christopher Sanchez instead of Crochet or Skeens up top, or you just go Kikuchi and you go a guy like Gavin Williams who could outmatch all 3 of those guys at the top in terms of strikeouts. And now you have a completely different roster construction than what the field's going to do. So that's how I would play it. I definitely think Kikuchi for sure. I'm keeping him in the pool. I'm going to be overweight. I'll probably have like 20% of him in MME and 20 max stuff, just because I think it's a really, really good spot for strikeouts. And at 6K, that's all you're looking for is strikeouts. If he gets us 15 to 18 points at 6K, and some of these other guys like Crochet gets rained out, things like that, I mean, I think you could be sitting pretty good. So I do like Kikuchi there with you. So overall, in summary, for me, it's Gavin Williams, Eovaldi, Sanchez, Nelson, Kikuchi are kind of the 5 main guys I'm looking at. I'm worried about Crochet with the weather, but if I get clarity on that, he'd be right up there on top of my board. What do you see here?
No, yeah, I totally am in alignment with you. I like the Kikuchi call. He's just so cheap, and he's got strikeout upside. And again, goes to my point, like if you're not playing the Yankees, it makes sense to have some Kikuchi, because if they're not going nuts, it's likely the 6K pitcher against them did well, because they're so cheap. He's so cheap. You know, it's kind of like the Baltimore-Arizona game. Both sides are so cheap. Obviously, you've got Judge in the mix, but everyone else is cheap enough where you can stack them comfortably with whoever else you want. So, yeah, I get Kikuchi. I don't know if I'll land there because I don't think you have to do it. Plenty of ways to spend up on pitching, but I got no issues with it. And if I were playing 150, I'd definitely be over the field. He might sneak into 1 or 2 of my lineups tonight. I never mind getting weird with it in MLB, and he's a good way to do that. He's just too cheap, man. Like, you talked about his strikeout upside. I'm not worried about his floor here because, you know, I'm not winning tournaments if he doesn't pitch well anyways, but his ceiling is super high for this tag, so I'm in.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Jumping over to hitters here, one of the better hitting environments on the slate, at least in terms of run totals and just in general game total overall. Baltimore and Arizona here. Temperatures are up. Wind is blowing out to center field at 7 to 10, 12 miles an hour from what I'm looking at here. However, 2 pitchers that aren't great but are serviceable in general. This game is tough for me to get a read. For me personally, I just like more mini stacks in this game. I think Marte, Carroll, Perdomo, Castillo is a really, really good stack there. Even Alec Thomas. I like the lefties there against Kramer. Marte, Carroll, Perdomo are going to be in play every single slate they're on all year long. Power speed guys, never really get a ton of ownership. Full 9 at bats here. So I like those guys. I'm always an Alec Thomas guy. I like him down there. Del Castillo at a catcher, you get another lefty. So you get an 8-1-2-3-4 stack. I think that's in play. I don't mind that. And then on the Orioles side, I think Gunnar Henderson's one of the better plays in the slate. Pete Alonso, for all the PvP guys out there, has absolutely murdered Reen Nelson every time we've seen him. You got Basalo, a cheap catcher there. Both of these stacks are in play, but they're not 2 of my top stacks on the board. It's just a really weird game. 2 of the better bullpens as well to start the season. Arizona sits 6th best, and Baltimore is 8th best. So, again, right up there with some of the better ones in the league so far. What do you see here in terms of hitting?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think that on a lot of slates, these 2 offenses might stand out more, but we got good hitting weather in a lot of spots. I kind of feel how I felt when we talked about the pitching, and that either stack is in play. Arizona's super cheap. Baltimore, not a great start to the season, but they've gotten it going a little bit recently. Obviously, the top of the lineup, Gunnar, bunch of home runs already. Alonso went yard. Taylor Ward's been good. Basayo homered recently. So I understand either stack, and especially as like a pivot off of the Yankees, who are going to be the highest owned stack on the board. I get it. I'm just not sure it's where I land, because I think they fall in line with a bunch of other good spots. The Phillies, the Dodgers, the Rangers, Angels, as you mentioned. So I think you can throw them right in line there. Like, they don't look as good as the Yankees on paper, but when you include ownership, I think you can make a reasonable case for either of these teams for full stacks. But I'm with you. Probably more likely I get there in minis. The Zona mini, cheap all over. In Baltimore, I mentioned the guys I like. So, yeah, I see this game kind of from all four sides of it.
Yeah, I think I definitely lean to the D-backs. Dean Kramer's making his first start of the year. He's been pitching well in the minors, but we all know that doesn't translate to the big leagues. He's showing like a 31% or 32% K rate so far in the limited sample in the minors, but we know that. And again, these lefties can get there either way. So if I had to pick a side, it'd be more on the D-back side, but it's more minis for me. Marte, Carroll, Perdomo, Gunnar, Pete Alonso, my 5 favorite bats from that game overall. Takes us to one of my favorite spots on the slate, Cubs and the Phillies. Christopher Sanchez, Javier Assad. Assad's been pitching pretty well. Sanchez, one of the better pitching options on the slate. But this is probably the best hitting environment on the slate from what I'm seeing here. It's going to be hot up in Philly. Got temperatures in the upper 70s, low 80s, with double-digit wind the entire duration of the game, blowing out to that lefty power alley in right center field. I love this spot for the Phillies. Phillies, one of my top stacks on the slate, if not my top stack. Ownership's going to get held in check, obviously, because we got the Dodgers and obviously the Yankees on the slate holding them down. I love the Phillies here. Javier Assad, yeah, he's decent, but he's been he's one of the lesser pitcher options on the slate going today. And the Cubs bullpen kind of middle of the road, right? So I love the Phillies here. I know the Phillies have not been great, but I think at home here against Chicago, who obviously everyone bought on heavy coming into the year with all the offseason trades they made, going out and getting Bregman. I know they lost Kyle Tucker, but then signing their pitchers and that. I think this spot is really nice for the Phillies here. What do you see?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if I like them quite as much as you do, but I have no arguments with it. Just planting your flag there. Sounds like they're your favorite stack on the slate. I get it. I'm not a believer in Assad, not buying what he's selling. Philly, immense upside. I do think, and I wrote this in the slate plan, of all the non-Yankees or Dodger stacks, they have the highest upside on the board. You look at the top of their lineup in this matchup, good hitting weather. I get it. I'm playing 5 lineups tonight. It's likely I have some exposure here. Hard not to. They look really good. I like their upside. I don't know if they're my favorite stack on the board, but they're right in that second group.
Yeah, I like that. I don't think it's the craziest to play some of these Cubs, guys like Bregman, Horner, Ian Happ, even Matt Shaw, who's a lefty masher there. Carson Kelly, who is projected to be in there against the lefty. I don't think it's the craziest take. Much prefer the Philly side of this one for sure. Starting with all of the lefties, I'm just going to attack a pitcher who, keeps the ball on the ground in Assad, but doesn't strike anyone out. He's sitting at a 16% K rate. Has been pretty wild at times as well to righties with a double-digit walk rate. So you start walking guys like Trey Turner who can steal, Adolis Garcia, and then you got guys on base for guys like Schwarber, Harper, Brandon Marsh, Justin Crawford, who's cheap down there. I like it quite a bit here for sure. Next game on the slate, Pirates and the Nationals. Cade Cavalli on the mound. Paul Skeens on the mound. Paul Skeens probably, if we don't get clarity on Crochet, going to be the highest owned pitcher on the slate. So, yeah, naturally you can have some Nationals, and they're red hot right now. I saw a guy in the chat slandered how they swept the Brewers. We also got to remember, for everyone's sake, we're 15 games through the season, right? Brewers ended up with the best record in baseball last year, and they started out absolutely abysmal. Teams last year started out absolutely red hot, fell off the cliff by the end of the year. Teams like the Mets, things like that. So it's very limited. Are the Nationals playing good right now? Absolutely they are. Is Paul Skeens going to get ownership? Absolutely. Do the Nationals make sense in tournaments? Yes. James Wood, CJ Abrams, two of the better plays in the slate. You want the lefties against Paul Skeens. The Nationals know that. They threw out 8 lefties against him. That's what keeps my interest slightly down against Paul Skeens when I have other guys like a Christopher Sanchez, like a Gavin Williams, like a Nathan Eovaldi who I can play in the slate. So Nationals firmly in play for me. And then the Pirates hit the shit out of the ball yesterday. Brandon Lowe has been one of the best hitters in baseball to start the year. Cade Cavalli's been one of the lesser pitchers going. So I have the Pirates up there is one of my favorite stacks or one of my top stacks on the slate as well. And you add in the Nationals bullpen, who is down there in terms of league worst. I'm in on both sides of this game, but definitely in on the Pirates for stacks.
Yeah, I think you make good points on the Nats. Like, they've been pesky to start the year, but I'm personally not interested in stacking them against Paul Skeens here. Just too many other good spots. If that's what wins tonight, so be it. I'm with you on Skeens himself. We talked about that. I do think the Pirates look good as well. Like, talked about this kind of group of teams that falls like dumps. You can dump them all together right after the Yankees and Dodgers. I think the Pirates fit there. Cavalli is not a gas can, but on this slate, you kind of mentioned it with Assad. Like, he's one of the weaker arms to target. So Pirates definitely in play here. You got the pairing of Skeens and the Pirates together, if that's your thing. I will say I also agree to your point about Washington has a good lineup. They're pesky, and that is also why I prefer Crochet over Skeens if weather weren't a thing. But it is a thing, and I think Skeens is a more than fine pivot.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So yeah, we see that good. And again, I mean, Skeens could definitely have 10 strikeouts or 12 strikeouts even right here. But the Nats just haven't struck out a ton against right-handed pitching to start the year. And that's in, I mean, almost 300 plate appearances. They're sitting at an 18.5% K rate. And one of those is James Wood, who's probably the hottest hitter in baseball right now, if not one of them, with his 30%, which is obviously boosting that number. And Brady House, the only righty in the lineup there. So it actually, let me refresh this. I don't even see Brady House. Yeah, he's not in there. So now you take a strikeout bat out of the lineup there in House and replace it with a guy who doesn't strike out a lot. I mean, so there's reason to play some. I much prefer, I'm not going to 5-man stack the Nats outside of large field tournaments or something like that. But I think James Wood, CJ Abrams, 2-man mini stack in a chalkier team. I think it makes a ton of sense there. But yeah, I love the Pirates here a lot more than some of the other teams on the slate. Takes us to the most important talking point of the slate. It feels like Coors Field 2.0. Look at this combined ownership here, pushing 125%, which is absolutely ridiculous. And not to mention, you got guys who are probably for sure getting pinch hit for as soon as Kikuchi's out of this game. Goldschmidt's going to get pinch hit for. Grichuk's going to get pinch hit for. Caballero could get pinch hit for. I mean, you add it, Ahmed Rosario, right? You add in the pinch hit concerns along with the ownership. I mean, are the Yankees the best play in paper? Absolutely. Is everybody going to tell you, all the touts, all the shows everywhere across the industry is going to have the Yankees as the best play, right? You saw the dry run, 70% Yankee stacks in terms of projected score, 50% of those being 5-man stacks, because look at these price points. Outside of Aaron Judge, they're ridiculously cheap, but that's because they're facing a lefty. So you got these pinch hit guys like Goldschmidt, like Rosario, like Grichuk, who aren't everyday players, thrusted in this lineup because they're facing Kikuchi. Now, those guys could easily hit a home run in first 2 at-bats against Kikuchi, but Kikuchi's obviously he's a GPP special pitcher always, every time he's on the slate. Even last year, there's going to be slates where he strikes out 8 to 10 guys, and there's going to be slates where he gives up 4 home runs, gets pulled after 2 innings, and you lose, right? So I say all that. What do you see here in terms of hitting Yankees and Angels?
No, I feel like we see this exactly eye to eye. Like, the Yankees obviously look good on paper. If ownership weren't a thing, if we were just drafting a squad for tonight with all the players in the field, Judge would go first, and you'd want a lot of Yankees. But ownership is a thing. They're going to get owned. They're going to be really highly owned in like single entry, higher dollar type stuff. So I think they're the best stack on the board on paper. For me, it's tougher to get away from them than some other chalky stacks because of their upside here. But with expected really high ownership, the pinch hit risk. I think getting away from them in tournaments totally makes sense. I don't think you have to do that because there are ways to get different within Yankee stacks, playing different secondary stacks with them, different pitchers, etc. But I think considering their struggles against lefties, our fondness for Kikuchi, other good offenses, I don't think you have to play them by any means.
Yeah, I'm just playing not even an ownership game. I'm just playing the slate at hand. And I mean, when you're double, maybe even 2.5, 3 times as owned as any other stack on the slate, when we have 17 other teams to choose from, I mean, I'll take a chance on being under on the Yankees just in all fronts. It's just not even. I mean, I made all the reasons for it. Is Aaron Judge probably the best player on the slate? Absolutely. Stanton not far behind him, but all these other guys, it's just I'm worried about the pinch hit risk there. And you look at the Angels bullpen, and yeah, it was horrible last year. It probably regresses back to being below average, but so far to start the year, sitting middle of the road. I mean, they've only given up 5 home runs, 36 walks, and have 62 strikeouts. So that bullpen has been better than last year for sure, at least to start the season there. So it's not the same cupcake Angels matchup as always. I actually like the Angels a decent amount here in tournaments. You want lefties against Will Warren, which obviously the Angels don't have a lot, but Nolan Shanuel, I think is a solid play. Neto, Trout, Soler, Moncada, Josh Lowe. You got lefties right in this lineup to attack Will Warren. They get the exact same hitting conditions on the slate at no ownership, full 9 inning at bats against a guy in Will Warren who, has strikeout ability, but also has the tendencies at times to get blown up, right? So, and especially get blown up from the lefties there. So, Moncada, Josh Lowe, Shanuel, Frazier, those guys I think are in play. Yankees bullpen, not horrible, but not great to start the year as well. So, in tournaments, I think the Angels are pretty interesting here, pretty sneaky in general. Because everyone's just focused on the Yankee side of this game and forgetting to realize that, hey, Angels aren't as good, but they have power in their own right and have the exact same hitting dimensions and conditions on the slate. So I do think they're pretty interesting for sure in tournaments. Marlins, Braves, Yuri Perez, Grant Holmes, 2 pitchers that I think are a little overpriced for their upside, given relative to other guys in the slate. I wouldn't fault anyone for playing either of these guys. I'd lean Perez just for more strikeout ability. But both of these guys have tendencies to get wild. So in terms of stacks, I think the Braves are interesting just as a bet. If Perez doesn't have it and he starts walking guys, he also gets hit hard and gives up a lot of barrel rate. I think the Braves are interesting. Ronald Acuna, Drake Baldwin's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. He's going to be sub 5%, sub 10% ownership, and he's been absolutely electric to start the year. These lefties are really what you want against Perez. And the Braves have some good ones. So I like the Braves quite a bit. And I love this lineup that they rolled out. The only 2 righties is Acuna and Dubon. Acuna, one of the best players in the league, obviously. Dubon would be my least favorite by far. Michael Harris being back in that lineup. Dom Smith is showing power. I think the Braves are up there in terms of stack interest for this. And you get that Marlins bullpen behind Perez, who can be wild and pitch himself right out of his own game, right, if he doesn't have his command. So what do you see here?
Yeah, monster showing from the Braves last night, putting up 13 on my Guardians. I respect Yuri Perez enough where I don't love the Braves, but hard to ignore their upside here. You mentioned it. Their lineup top to bottom. They're kind of locked in right now. Even Dubon, who you mentioned is, maybe the worst player in their lineup, he's been really good to start the season. So if you're stacking the Braves, I wouldn't be afraid to go 1 through 9 here. All in all, I think this is a spot I'm likely to just kind of stay away from all sides. I respect both pitchers enough. I like both offenses enough where I don't love anything. I do think the Braves offense looks the best of anything, though. I'm with you.
Yeah, we see it pretty similar there. Takes us to the biggest weather concern on the slate. We do have some rain and showers in 2 of those earlier games that I didn't touch on too much. In the Nationals and Pirates game, there's some weather concerns there. And then obviously a little bit as well in that Yankees game, the Yankees game being the least amount of concern. But this is definitely the biggest concern on the slate in terms of weather. It's definitely a big talking point because, again, it starts an hour after those other games start that I talked about, where the pitching options, guys like Skeens and Sanchez up in that Garrett Crochet price tier are. If this game plays and if the weather was fine, I would absolutely load up on the Boston bats here. I'm more willing to play the Boston bats than play Crochet, in my opinion here, just because if this game does start and we get an in-game delay, chances are it probably gets postponed just the way the forecast looks. But if it doesn't, Crochet's not going to come back out. The Red Sox bats will. Now that does hurt, obviously, attacking Bailey Ober, who's the worst pitcher by far on the slate, in my opinion. And he probably won't come back out after the delay either. However, the Twins bullpen, second worst to start the year. They're not going to be good all year. It's going to be humid in Minnesota, obviously, with the storm fronts moving in and that. I think the Red Sox would be up there close to the top of my board in terms of stacks. I put them pretty similar to a team like the Phillies. It's hard to see and figure out based on the weather. But what do you see here, Twins and Red Sox?
Another game we're right in line with. Like Crochet, we've talked about. He looks like the best arm on the slate. If weather weren't a concern, I'd be just playing him. I like Boston, too. They've been good to me recently. Played them yesterday. The day before, they went off in the ninth inning, then carried it over yesterday. I would be in on Boston, but the weather, I don't know. So, again, we got a couple hours to lock because of the early lock. Certainly more time until that game locks, but ideally I'd like to make a decision prior to that. And with how it looks right now, with how many good spots there are, I'm likely to just get away from this game and hope it doesn't burn me. That includes Crochet as well. Again, I like him. I like Boston, but just too risky probably for me to, dive head over heels into. If that changes, I might change my thought process there.
I will say I would uncheck all of these players outside of full stacks. I would not want any mini stacks or one-offs from this game on either side. So if you're playing it, go in and play it. Maybe even put Crochet in the lineup and just say this game plays. There's no weather. They get it in, and you got 5 Red Sox and Garrett Crochet in the chamber, right? And you can easily do it because of their salaries allow you to do so. So that's how I would approach it. And I think it's fairly I think it's a pretty good strategy that I'm not going to allow any mini stacks, 2-man, 1-man, or 3-man stacks or anything for either side of this game. 5-man stacks only, if anything. And I like pairing the bats up with Crochet if you do that and just say, hey, I'm going to take the risk on this portion of my portfolio. I'm going to play Crochet. I'm going to play the Red Sox bats. And that's how I'm going to approach it. And if it gets rained out, so be it. I got the other part of my portfolio. But in single entry 3-max stuff, I probably don't get to Crochet or any of the Red Sox bats or any of the Twins if you wanted to get there either. And I will mention Ryan Jeffers, I think, is an elite one-off if the game plays. He could hit a home run off of Garrett Crochet in his first at-bat. The dude mashes lefties. He's hitting in the cleanup spot, 3,600 at a catcher position, at no ownership against the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. If the game plays, there's much worse plays on the slate, in my opinion, than that. So didn't want to call out that. Takes us into Busch Stadium here. Going to be super hot. Not super hot, but hot and humid in St. Louis. Wind blowing out at a big margin, right? 15 plus the entire duration of the game here. Cardinals bullpen sucks. Liberatore sucks. This is a spot where I'm buying on the Guardians. Outside of J-Ram, nobody's gonna get an ownership for the Guardians. I just think this is a spot that I'm gonna buy on. I'm not a believer in Liberatore. You want the righties, and there's some guys like David Fry, some of these other guys that have some pinch hit concerns, but I'm not too worried in general. I like the Guardians a lot here. They're probably my favorite sneaky stack on the board, given their salaries, their price points, what they allow you to do with the roster. And outside of J-Ram, like I said, no one's going to play this team. So what do you see here? Guardians and the Cardinals.
Yeah, we talked a little bit prior to the slate starting about the Guards, and I could get on board there. Like, they didn't stand out to me at first, but Liberatore's certainly not a guy I'm afraid to pick on. You got good hitting weather here. Jose Ramirez starting to get going. You do have some pinch hit risk, but some home run upside up and down here. So I could get on board with Cleveland. I could also get on board with St. Louis and like large field stuff, especially if Gavin Williams just starts to get more ownership. He puts guys on base, and You've got the same weather for the Cardinals side. I'm not going to stack them here in my limited lineups, but if I were playing large field stuff, I'd want to get a little bit of exposure there. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, I wrote that up too in my Nuggets as like 4 guys or 3 guys that you could play from the Cardinals that I'd have interest in as well. I do expect Gavin Williams' ownership to creep up heading into the lock, especially if we don't get clarity of Garrett Crochet. Moore's ownership is going to go right to Sanchez and Skeens, but some of that's going to trickle down to Gavin Williams as well. Guys like Alec Burleson, Nolan Gorman, Weather Holt, Jordan Walker would be the main 4 guys that I would look at. Jordan Walker is real. He's here. The breakout's finally happening, or at least to start the year it is, when everyone thought, and when he came on the scene, right, and struggled big time. But it takes these guys, right, these prospects, these younger players, some time to get acclimated, and it's finally here for Jordan Walker. So Weatherholt, Burleson, Walker, Gorman, I think are 4 really interesting bats if you wanted to get there. And then you want all the lefty or all the righties mainly against Liberatore, but even guys like Chase DeLauder, who I think is real as well. He's not going to have Liberatore in there the whole game, and you got a really bad bullpen behind him. So then you get the lower owned guy, platoon advantage for the back half of the game.
Whole match anyone too. He's definitely real. So his only thing is staying healthy, but he's the best hitting prospect the Guardians have had in a long time. Just like pure hitting. People have said around here the best hitting prospect since Manny Ramirez. I don't know if I'm willing to go there, but again, health is his big issue. He just cannot stay healthy, but when he's healthy, he's been really good. Excited about that kid.
Yeah, he's a stud, and it's nice to have him right there with J-Ram to pack a punch in that lineup. So
yes.
I do think he's the real deal, and I don't even care lefty-lefty. I think he's able to hit lefties. He can steal bases. He's got a ton of power. So I love the Guardians here tonight. They're kind of one of my flag plant spots. They're going to be unowned, and they're a pivot off a team that we're going to talk about here that I still like a ton in the Rangers, going out to face Luis Severino, who somehow finds his way to just kind of skate through soft contact and get through games. But at home last year, Severino was atrocious in Sacramento. He was better on the road. No surprise, minor league stadium there. I talked about the hitting weather isn't great compared to other spots, and that's usually what we get, right? Early parts of the season, typically we target these West Coast games because the Midwest and the East Coast and that have been terrible in terms of temperatures and that. Games in like the 30s and low 40s where it was 60s out West Coast. That 20-degree difference makes a big difference overall in terms of how the ball travels and run production and this and that. It's kind of flip-flopped here tonight. That's why I like Eovaldi so much in terms of a pitcher and just the nature of the slate, the way the slate sets up. Texas, though, I think is really, really interesting here. One of the top stacks on the board. They're going to be very popular in like Dodgers and Yankee stacks because of their salaries. They allow you to play them as mini stacks. Brandon Nimmo, one of the better plays in the slate. Corey Seager is still way too damn cheap. I mean, I don't know what DraftKings does. I don't know what Corey Seager needs to do ever to get priced over 5K. You got Jock Jams, who I know our guy Hamwich out there. Maybe he's listening somewhere. He last year, every single time he was on the slate, he would give away $100 ticket if Jock hit a home run, and every single time he didn't. So he didn't have to pay that out. But I think the Rangers are really interesting here in this ballpark. A's bullpen's not good. Severino, I'm not a believer in him. Gets hit hard especially from the left side in general, but both sides in particular. What do you see here?
Yeah, I've been in on the Rangers a bunch recently. I like this lineup. I'm a little bit worried about ownership here, but that aside, I think they look good, no doubt. They're right in that second-tier group behind the Yankees and Dodgers. If you told me, like, instead of the Phillies, the Rangers were your favorite stack on the board, I'd have no arguments. They look good here. Good ballpark upgrade. Severino, he's talented, but not a good ballpark for him. Obviously, he really struggled there last year. So, yeah, the Rangers look good here. I saw someone earlier say Matt's definitely got to be on the A's here. I wouldn't go that far. I respect Eovaldi enough. I don't love this A's lineup right now without Rooker. But I will say they just swept the Mets on the road as dogs in like all 3 games there. Now they're coming back home as a dog. It's a perfect spot where I like the A's from a betting perspective in this game, but I don't really like them from a DFS perspective. And I do think that the most likely outcome is Texas gets to Severino, and that's that. But as we know, things often don't play out how they're expected. So I do think this game could get weird just because of the ballpark. Kind of like St. Louis. If I were playing 150, I'd have some athletics in my pool.
Yeah, I'm even content having. I think Butler's a great play. Nick Kurtz would be my favorite bat. Langeliers has been absolutely incredible to start the year. Nobody's going to click that name, righty at 5,900 at a catcher position. When you got guys like Austin Wells, right? Austin Wells at 2,800 in Yankee Stadium. Even lefty there, and there's other catchers that are going to get played on this slate. So I think Kurtz, Langeliers, Soderstrom would be the three favorite, but really that top four, if it stays the same, Butler, Kurtz, Langeliers, Soderstrom, I think are all great options. Eovaldi's not bulletproof by any means. He's one of my favorite options on the slate, just with his strikeout upside. Look at this K per nine metrics, and the A's strikeout a ton, as you can see. But I don't think those high-powered bats are not guys that I would take out of the pool by any means. Last game of the slate, Dodgers Stadium. Justin Robleski on the mound. Reliever turned into a starter here for the Dodgers out of necessity with all their injuries they have, and they just kind of sleepwalk through the regular season anyways until they get to the postseason, and then everybody has a hard enough time trying to beat their ass with their payroll that they have over there in L.A., Mets coming to town. David Peterson, this is what kind of scares me a little bit about the Dodgers. I mean, obviously the Dodgers on paper, the first stop for anybody not playing the Yankees are the Dodgers. And I think it's definitely, there's merit to that, right? The Dodgers offense is great. They can get to anybody on the slate. It's just David Peterson is not the worst pitcher in the world by any means. And these salaries, I mean, you want the righties against Peterson. Obviously, no surprise there. But Miguel Rojas, I mean, Pages has been really good. Pages and Hernandez would be my two favorites. I don't love the matchup here overall for the Dodgers. That's why I have the Phillies ahead of them and the Yankees. Just obviously we talked about the Yankees in depth here. I think the sneaky spot here would be some of these Mets against Robleski. I mean, you look at Robleski last 30 days in his starts this year, doesn't really keep the ball on the ground, doesn't have a good strikeout stuff to either side really. And the Mets offense on paper should be good. I mean, they haven't been great. I don't know. I think it's fairly interesting here. Some of these Mets guys, Luis Robert, lefty masher. I think he's great. Vientos, lefty masher, 3,700. He's great. Semien doesn't have a lot of power, but he rarely strikes out. I think he's fine. Tyrone Taylor, my guy from the Brewers, rest in peace him. Platoon guy, really only gets in there against lefties. He can hit home runs. What do you see here, Mets and Dodgers?
Another one we see pretty similarly. Like, obviously the Dodgers look good because their lineup is elite. Anytime they're not facing like a true ace type pitcher, they're going to be one of the top stacks on the board because that's how good their offense is. And Peterson is far from an ace elite pitcher. So they look good here. I think that I respect Peterson more than the field does, so I'm a little bit lower on the Dodgers as you are, but like the Yankees, their upside's real here. I want to like the Mets. I really do. It's just tough. Like, their lineup without Soto leaves a lot to be desired. I got no issues picking on Robleski. At ownership, I think the Mets and Dodgers look similar. I'm not sure I'm going to get there, but in tournaments at really low ownership, I think the Mets have a role on this slate, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think they're fine. They're not one of my favorite stacks. I mean, I talked about the other teams who I like. I like the Rangers. I like the Guardians a lot. Obviously, the Red Sox, if that game plays, I have the Braves above them. I think the Angels are interesting. So they're not up there, but I wouldn't be shocked to see the Mets get there in Dodger Stadium. I like these other games. I don't really like these last games much outside of the Rangers in terms of offense in general. So I do think the Mets, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Mets on a winning lineup. At the end of the day, when looking at this lineup, guys like Bichette, Lindor, Polanco, who's a switch hitter, Robert, Vientos, these guys all can hit left-handed pitching, and I don't think Robleski's that great by any means. So, not the craziest take. I do want to hit on this 640. No, this is going to be going forward now the normal start time for MLB. The only reason we did 5 p.m. Eastern time start time for the MLB show is because we also ran an NBA show at this time slot. So going forward, the rest of the MLB season, all summer, everything, the live shows will be at 4 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Central time. So did want to clear that up. But Matt, to round out the show, we're going to do it how we always do it. Your favorite pitching combination, your favorite overall stack, sneaky stack, and any home run call you have for the people before we close out.
Yeah, favorite pitching combination. I'll throw weather aside because I don't know what's going to happen. I'll say Crochet and Gavin. And then for stacks, we'll say I'll ride with you on Philly. I think all those teams look good here. So the Phillies, right in that second tier behind the most obvious Yankees and Dodgers. So we'll ride there. Low owned. Let's go with the Mets, who we just talked about.
I like it. I'm going to go Gavin Williams and Nathan Eovaldi. I like those two quite a bit here. In terms of my favorite stacks on the slate, I'm going to have the Guardians up there. I like the Guardians a ton, and the Phillies, obviously. So those two teams are what I'm looking at. Home run call for the people. I'm going to go – didn't have one ready off the top of my head, but I'm going to go to I'm going to go back to the Phillies. I'm going to go Brandon Marsh, 3,400, hitting fifth. My favorite offense on the slate. Good hitting conditions there for those, especially for those lefties up there in Philly. I think Brandon Marsh goes deep. And then kind of more of a contrarian. Actually, I'm not even going to give it. I was going to give Ryan Jeffers, but I'm not sure what that weather is going to look like there. And if Crochet is even going to make it longer than a couple innings, if any, if that game doesn't play there. So I'll leave it at Brandon Marsh for the people. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. If you're not a member yet, you're still time to get in. Go to shipitnation.com and click join the nation right here. Front page. You see it up on the screen. Trial, $19, 5 days. If you've never signed up yet, check us out. $19. You can't even go and go out to dinner at a restaurant and get a nice meal for $19, let alone get all the content here to have the potential to win life-changing money like a lot of our members did over the weekend in the Masters. 150 lineups. You get our partner SaberSim. And if you don't care about any of the other sports, single sport MLB package with an optimizer, $49 a month right here. You can't even go to sabersim.com and get that for under $100. That's going to do it for Matt. I'm Nades. Good luck tonight in those contests. Hope to see those Shipping Nation logos at the top. Let's have a night. We're out of here. Peace.